and welcome back to By Myself But Not Alone. This is episode 24, Birmingham, Alabama. Now before we get started with this episode, I'd like to tell you about something very cool that happened to me since I posted the last video. In the Little Rock episode, I mentioned that how much I loved the show posters, the merch poster, and the VIP poster. Throughout the course of the tour, a lot of the shows had one really stellar poster and then another one that was, it was pretty cool. But collectively, the two from Arkansas rank right at the top of my listing of what I'll call show poster sets. That's the VIP and the merch poster. And in that episode, I mentioned that I really wish I would have gotten one of those posters. They were just so cool. Right after I posted that episode, I got a message from my friend Travis. He was one of the guys that I met at the Arkansas show, and I interviewed him, Travis Blankenship. You may remember him if you watched the episode. In the message, he asked if I minded sending him my address. I didn't have any problem with that. I really didn't give it any thought. I just gave him my address and figured I'd wait and see what happened. A few days later, when I got home after work, this was on the front porch. I opened it up and it was the Little Rock VIP poster. Now I'm not going to unroll it for you. I left it upstairs intentionally so I wouldn't be tempted, but this is just an internet stock photo of the poster he sent me. Now I did not mention the posters in the episode in hopes that something like this would happen. I mentioned them in the episode because I really loved them. Travis said that as soon as he heard me say that, he knew what he wanted to do with his extra poster. He had two of them. And he knew right away that he wanted to send me one. He said he wanted to send me one to thank me for all my work on the videos. He's been a really big supporter of the channel since right after we met, and I didn't even realize who it was until I got to working on the episode. All along I've known him as Greedo11, that's his YouTube username, but I also remembered him as Travis. I just had never put the two together. It all came together when he messaged me about the poster. So anyway, Travis, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your continued support of the channel. Thanks for the poster. As cool as that poster was before, you put it in a completely different level of coolness with the thoughtfulness and selflessness of your gift. And again, thank you. I'm going to keep this one forever. Okay, on to Birmingham. At the end of the last episode, I contacted our friend from England, Stuart Colson. I told him I'd be over shortly. I ran on over and picked him up, and we were headed for Alabama. We took I-40 east to Highway 49-278, which led us to Interstate 22, and that took us right into Birmingham. I chose a route that was about a half hour longer. That way Stuart could see a piece of Mississippi, knowing that in a couple days he'd be getting to see Tennessee. Otherwise, the other route would have taken us up through Memphis, and we wouldn't have got to go through Mississippi. I figured he was an awful long way from home, so we'd do it that way, and he'd get an extra state on his list of states he's traveled through. If that mattered or not, I wasn't quite sure, but I knew he'd be traveling through Tennessee in a couple days, heading for Nashville. So we just decided to do it that way, and we did. It was a nice little trip of just under 400 miles. It took us about 6 hours. Stuart wasn't in any more hurry than I was. He's a really laid-back guy. He was just looking forward to enjoying the ride. I told him all about my postcard pursuit and the friends I was sending them to, and he didn't have any problem with the fact that we might have to pull off a couple times and try to track some down. We got really lucky there on our first attempt. The first truck stop we pulled into had more postcards than I could ever dream of sending, so I bought what I needed. We got coffee. We went out to the car. I filled them out real quick, dropped them in the mail. That was done. On our way back to the highway, we spotted a Burger King. It was lunchtime, so we figured we'd go ahead and eat before we got back on the road. We hit the drive-thru. We ate there in the parking lot. My original plan was to grab the food and go. I realized it wouldn't be too smart to risk getting us killed by driving down the highway, eating my Whopper, driving with my knee. But more importantly, it would probably scare the crap out of my guests, and that would just be rude. So we went ahead and parked, we ate our lunch, and got back on the road. Those Whoppers inspired questions on my part about fast food in England, which led to more questions about how things went down in England. Pretty soon he was asking me questions about how things were over here. It became a very interesting back and forth conversation about how things were in England and how things were here in the United States. Stuart's been over here numerous times, so he knows quite a bit more about the United States than I do about England. So I probably asked a few more questions than he did, but he did not seem to mind. We covered a lot of ground on that trip. We talked about our hometowns, our families, our jobs, high school days, the Metallica scene in those early days, where we were. It reminded me a lot of what Michelle and I had been doing between the first two shows with our friend Svet. He lives in Connecticut now, but he was originally from Bulgaria. It was very similar, but just a little larger dose than what we had been doing, waiting in lines before all the shows, getting to know these people from all around the world. The Norwegians, the Swedes, the Australians, all the Canadians we got to know, the Mexicans, the Costa Ricans, the Brazilians, the guys from Ecuador, and all the other South American countries. In Svet's case and now Stuart's, I got to learn quite a bit more over the course of these little mini road trips about everyday life where they were from. It seems like quite often throughout this series I get on a little rant and I start naming off all these countries all in a row. And I repeatedly touch on how people from all around the world are included in the whole thing. Well, it seems like anymore, the world has gotten so crazy, there's such division here in the United States, but all around the world. And it seems like the only place where there's not hard division, in my life anyway, is out on the road in the world of Metallica. The differences are apparent, but that's never held against anyone. Nobody really cares in a negative way. We all see the differences for what they are. We embrace them, we respect them. That's what gives each person their individual character. When we all get together to do our thing, there seems to be a much greater realization that as different as we all may appear to be, at the end of the day, we're much more alike than we are different. And that's the greatness of MetFam and this whole thing that we do. And again, it's the only place left that I know to look for such an environment. I don't know anywhere else where that holds true. Metallica world is not divided, and it may be one of the last remaining safe havens in regards to such thought. So back to my little road trip with Stuart, I'm quite certain it's safe to say we both had a great time and we both learned a great deal about each other. So before we knew it, we were there. I dropped my friend off at his hotel and I headed out to find one for myself. It took me a little longer to find one than I thought it would after driving around aimlessly for a good amount of time. I finally pulled over and got on hotels.com to kind of scope out what was going on, and I realized that pretty much every hotel in Birmingham appeared to be sold out. It seemed like I was going to have to drive a half hour or maybe 45 minutes to get to a place where hotels were readily available again. And just looking at the map, it seemed like it made the most sense to go back the way I had just come. I kept seeing hotels that were in locations that I recognized from just passing the sign. So I got on the highway and headed out of town, and eventually it came to a point where there was less and less congestion on the sides. You know, it felt like I wasn't in the city anymore. Eventually I hit a point where everything seemed to be totally open, and I literally thought I had revelations. There was very little light from either side of the highway. The sun was offsetting somewhere in the distance. I couldn't see it anymore, but what I could see was a mind-blowing red sky with a cloud pattern that just seemed to go on forever. It seemed like waves in an ocean. It was a vast Red Sea. And then a light bulb went off. It was a crimson tide. Crimson Tide has always seemed to me to be a very strange name for a football team. I never knew where they came up with that, and here I was in Alabama experiencing it firsthand in all its red glory. I was pretty excited. The Crimson Tide, and man, the pattern, the way it rolled. Roll Tide. That's where it came from. Multiple mysteries solved. I was so excited. It all made sense to me now. It was brilliant, and I couldn't wait to tell other people how stupid I was for never knowing. And for those of you who may be laughing because you know better, I honestly thought I had it all figured out. So much happened between that evening and the end of the tour that it never really came up again, except one time with Michelle and Svet. Michelle said, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And Svet just sat there listening, and he said, "Ooh, that's interesting. That makes sense." But it never came up again until a couple months ago. I was talking to my friend Alan Peters. He lives there in Alabama, and I said, "Hey man, I've been meaning to ask you." And I told him everything I just told you. He didn't seem to know anything about it either, but he said he'd look into it. He said that red sky thing happens every once in a while, but he didn't know anything about the origin of the football team name. When he told me that, I had a little time on my hands, so I went ahead and did a quick research, and it seems that my stroke of genius was completely unfounded. I was wrong. The name of the team has absolutely nothing to do with the sky in Alabama. So that's about that. What can I say? It rained on my parade, but at least I got to enjoy it for a year. So anyway, I finally took an exit. I drove around for a little bit. I saw a sign for a Motel 6. That made me happy. I pulled on in, went inside to see about getting a room. When I got in there, the guy behind the desk told me he had rooms, but I might want to move on down the road because they were having some construction done. He said the work was being done at night and there was probably going to be more noise than I'd be interested in dealing with. I told him that would be absolutely no problem. I can sleep through anything and I'm half deaf. I didn't mind a little noise. I just needed a room. So with that, I checked in. I went to my room. I got unloaded. I had passed a McDonald's coming in, so I ran down there to get some coffee. I really wasn't feeling the McDonald's menu that night, but there was a snack machine in the lobby of the hotel, so that's what I had for supper. I went back to the room to relax, and I clearly remember laying there thinking, this isn't so bad. I could hear a little bit of noise, but it was totally doable. And then the hammers started, and the saws, and the stuff being moved and dropped, and a whole crew of guys came in. There was a very loud army of voices and tools. That's all I could hear. I really couldn't say anything about it because the guy warned me, so I just kind of laid there listening. At least I was relaxing. And then we had our domestic dispute. I was trying to piece it together from the shouting, and what it appeared to be was one of those married couple third-party hotel issues. Somebody caught somebody doing something they shouldn't have been doing. But then by the time it was all over, I was pretty convinced that it was a drug deal that had gone bad somewhere, and I wasn't really sure, but let me tell you, there was some excitement at that hotel that night. I was awake the whole night, and when the sun came up, that's when it seemed like everybody packed up their stuff and left. I was finally able to go to sleep. I got a few hours sleep before I woke up. I got up about noon, and it was probably 2 o'clock by the time I got ready and got down to the Legacy Arena in Birmingham. When I got down there, I thought I was in luck. I saw a parking lot right across the street from the venue. I mean, it was close and there was plenty of room to park. There was a guy out there taking money, so I pulled on in. It turned out to be a VIP lot, and it was some crazy amount, 30 or 40 bucks, and when he told me that, I just said, wow. I held my money out the window, and the old boy said, let me tell you a secret. If I were you, I'd back up and park right out there in front of the building in one of those metered spots. I told him I appreciated the thought, but I was going to the show and I wasn't going to be able to, once I got in, I wouldn't be able to come back out and feed the meter. He just smiled and he said, didn't you hear me? I said, I'm giving you the secret. This is the best kept secret in downtown parking. He looked at his watch and said, go over there and put $2 in that meter, and by the time it expires, the guys who enforce the laws of violations will be at home. They go off the clock at, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 o'clock, but he basically said they don't enforce parking violations after a certain point in the day. I looked right at him and said, are you sure? And he said, I lived here my whole life, trust me. I told him I appreciated it. I handed him $10 and said, have a couple beers after work. I backed out, pulled in the spot, got all my stuff ready, jumped out. I was digging around in the trunk looking for change to fill the meter. I turned around and I saw Val and Jason walk up. I got the change I needed. I went over and I filled the meter, told them what I was doing. They had, I believe they parked in that lot. We were about to cross the street, and one of them, I'm not sure which one it was, asked me if my car was still running. I held the keys up, said, no, I got them right here. Then the other one said, I hear it too. I said, no, it's off, and I pushed the button. We heard the honk. I said, it wouldn't lock the doors if the car was still running. So I went over just to be safe. I popped the door open and got in, and I'll be damned if the car wasn't running. I had that damn keyless ignition. I locked the car, and I almost left it running for 8 hours. I don't know. I'm a mechanical idiot. I don't know the first thing about cars. There might be some sort of safety shutoff. I don't know how these things work, but I do know that could have been an ugly scene at the end of that show. So good looking out, Jason and Val. Thank you very much. I'm so happy you reappeared into my life at that moment. You saved the day. So we crossed the street. I saw a line forming on one side of the building. I went on over. Stuart was over there. I talked to him for a bit. I told him I had to go find my black ticket line, and he went with me. He wanted to say hey to some of the black ticket holders. When we got there, there were probably 40 or 50 people there. Like I said, it was a little later in the day than normal, but I went ahead and got busy. I needed to get a few interviews for the episode. I did that. I met quite a few cool people. I met quite a few local people that day, but none of them seemed too interested in an interview. They all seemed to be pretty camera shy until I met black ticket holder Bill Saunders. I gave him his patch. I told him what I'd been doing with the black ticket intros. He was happy to be a part of that. I told him all about my channel. I asked him if he'd be interested in participating, and he said absolutely. He got pretty excited about it. Now, Bill is the guy on the thumbnail cover of this episode, and the moment I saw that shirt he had on, the It's Alive shirt, what he did there was he bought a poster from Kirk Hammett's It's Alive horror poster exhibit. He took the poster, already shrunk it down, and he had it put on a shirt. It turned out to be a really cool shirt. His plan had been all along to make it to the rail in hopes that Kirk would see it, and I saw him in Nashville a couple days later, and at that show he made it to the rail, and Kirk saw it and he acknowledged it, and he wore it again to Nashville, and the same thing happened. So he was pretty happy with the outcome of his plan. Again, that was a super cool shirt. I had a good time talking to him, and ever since that day I've had the plan in the back of my mind that when we get to the point of the Birmingham episode that was going to be the thumbnail cover, and that's what we did. I did a couple more interviews. I got a couple more black ticket introductions. I gave out a couple more black ticket patches, and before we knew it, they were opening the doors and letting us in. As soon as we got in, I went off and got my drink, which may have been a mistake. I kind of walked around the floor talking to a few people, but I kind of settled pretty quickly in one spot. I settled next to some old boy. We had an interesting conversation about blues music. Pretty soon Jim was on the stage. There was a good interaction between Jim and the crowd that night. I mean, a really good one. There was quite an energy in that crowd, and I know I say this about most of the shows, but that was the first time in 27 years that they played a show in Alabama, and you could tell. The hungry feeling of the crowd that night really reminded me of the Tulsa crowd. It had been a long time since they had returned to Tulsa as well, and it seemed really similar. Unfortunately for me, I was feeling pretty rough due to minimal sleep, and as soon as I finished my drink, I I kind of realized maybe I shouldn't have done that. I just didn't feel like I was there that night. But that all changed the moment we heard the angels singing. It was almost like a miracle. When the band took the stage, the energy in that crowd woke me up like a triple dose of McDonald's coffee. It was on. I believe it was yet another venue record-breaking crowd of over 17,000 people, and you could just tell, like I said, they were hungry. I'm not kidding. You could feel how long it had been since they had played a show there, and you could feel how badly that crowd missed them. Metallica rocked the crowd, but more importantly, you could just see it on their faces. The crowd rocked Metallica. That interactive dynamic was full on that night. You could really see how much the band was enjoying what they were doing. To me, the most memorable part of that show was when Rob and Kirk did what they call their doodle, their little collaborative work. We had been talking about this for the previous couple shows leading up to it, so we were all waiting for it, and it happened. When they started playing Sweet Home Alabama, the crowd went crazy. What I had been waiting for leading up to this was to hear the crowd do the vocals, because for the most part it's just Rob's bass and Kirk's guitar, and they do a little mashup. So when they started playing Sweet Home Alabama, the crowd went nuts, and leading right up to the vocal part, I was anticipating the crowd to sing it. That's when I noticed that James was still on the stage, and at the last minute he walked up to the microphone. It was really interesting to watch, and I didn't get the feeling that James walked to the microphone to be featured as the lead vocals. It really seemed more to me like James grabbed the microphone. He wanted to sing along with the crowd that he knew would be singing, if that makes sense. It was a very interesting thing to watch and to be a part of. I was really glad to be there for that. The rest of the set list that night was right in line with all the other shows. There were some key rotations made. Sanitarium and the Four Horsemen were back in. Creeping Death, Battery was back in the #1 slot, first encore. But what was considered to be the song of the night by many people there was Dream No More from Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Now this song, it's actually my least favorite on the whole Hardwired album. It's a solid song, it's decent, many people love it, but it's just the one, if I had to rank them, that would be at the very bottom. You gotta have one. If you've been following the series, you may remember that I've been trying to use every song that was played on the tour in at least one video in the series. So as far as using this song, it's now or never. It was only played twice on the tour, once in Grand Forks and now here again in Birmingham. And a shout out to my friend Christina for that little bit of information. When I sat down to make the video, I wasn't even quite sure. I knew it didn't get played much, but a friend had my back. She was at the Grand Forks show. So again, thanks Christina. Good looking out. So Dream No More will be the song featured in the video at the end of the episode, and we're going to refer to that as the song of the night. At the end of the night, I got my 2 Birmingham picks, and I headed out to find the group photo. And on my way there, I never did find the group, because I ran into Clint Wells of Metal Up Your Podcast. I knew I was going to be meeting up with Clint and Ethan at their pre-party that they were hosting in Nashville, but I didn't anticipate running into either of them that night, but I shouldn't have been too surprised. It was just a couple hours away. I got to talk to Clint for just a few minutes before they started really kicking everybody out. We walked along, heading towards our cars until we came to the point where we broke up. We had a nice little conversation. It was short, but we agreed to continue the conversation in Nashville the next night. So it turned out to be a great night after all. All things considered, I was feeling pretty good after the show. On the ride back, I was not looking forward to the commotion at the hotel, but fortunately for me, when I got there, it really wasn't there. I heard a little noise here and there, but nothing like the chaos the night before. It didn't take long and I was out like a light. I got good and caught up in my sleep. I didn't have to get up until I heard the wake-up call. I got all my stuff together, I loaded up the car, checked out, hit McDonald's, jumped on the highway heading for Nashville. I'd like to say thank you to the crowd in Birmingham. It was an absolute pleasure to be in your company that night. I'm never going to forget that little Sweet Home Alabama moment. You guys killed it. Thank you. I'd like to say thanks for the company on the trip, Stuart. I had a great time hanging out with you, and I look forward to maybe doing it again in the future. Possibly next time in your country. Travis, one final time I want to say thanks for the Little Rock poster. That was one heck of a gesture on your part. I appreciate it. Thank you. And to everyone else, as always, I'd like to say thanks for watching. If you like what we have going on here, we would appreciate it greatly if you consider subscribing to the channel. Give us a like, a dislike, whatever the case may be. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. If you should happen to find yourself in one of the videos, please feel free to share it to social media and help us grow the project. Next stop, Nashville, Tennessee. We'll see you there. Until then, rock on. Okay, who are you and where are you from?
Bill Saunders, black ticket holder from Gulf Shores, Alabama.
I'm Andy from Texas originally.
I'm Michael from Alabama.
I'm Payan from Brazil.
I'm Fernanda from Brazil, Brazilian Militia, local chapter.
I'm Eric Reeb from Germany. I lived now for 5 years in America.
How long have you been a Metallica fan?
Jeez, besides all my life, probably first time I saw or heard Blackened, that was probably like 10, 12 area.
Been a Metallica fan since 1987.
A long time since I was a kid. I don't know.
Since 90. Since 90.
Since 87.
Forever.
Do you have someone in your life that you solely credit for turning you on to the band, or how did you come about being a
Yeah,
fan?
Rollin Sloan, man, biggest Metallica fan ever. I do wish he was still here with us, but you know, absolutely, we loved it together.
Is there one person in your life that turned you on to the band in the first place?
Sorry?
How did you become a Metallica fan? Is there someone in your life that turned you on to the band in the first place? Brother, sister, uncle,
No,
friend?
by myself. Yes, by myself.
Yes. Like here. Just by myself.
You found them on your own?
My older brother and his friends.
Some childhood buddies, they showed me the 598 EP and introduced me to it that way.
Listened to metal when I was a child.
So you kind of discovered it on your own?
Yeah. Or from my parents, brother.
Okay. Can you narrow it down to a favorite song?
Blackened, absolutely, it's the song that turned me on to it. It's a brutal song, love Jason's input on it, and fucking it's awesome.
Okay, how about favorite album?
Favorite album, debated this one forever, I think it's actually Ride the Lightning. Love the Thrash.
Okay, favorite band member, past or present? Go all the way back to Mustaine if you like.
You know, we're gonna go with Kirk. I mean, he's the reason I play with guitar. Got my ESP KH2 at the house. I mean, shreds.
Song.
One song. Can you narrow it down? One
Just
song.
one. Master of Puppets. Masters. The best
Eye
one.
of the Beholder.
Battery.
Creeping Death.
All right, favorite album?
Justice.
Master Brothers.
Ride the Lightning.
Master of Puppets.
Do you have a favorite band member, past or present?
Hetfield, man. It's got to be him.
I guess Lars. I like all of them.
For me, Kirk, because he saved the band in some kind of monster years.
It's for me, I'm so in love with Lars ever. Lars is the best guy in the world.
He's pretty cool, I agree.
He's so cool, so attention with us fans. I love Lars.
All righty. Can you narrow it down to a favorite song?
Ooh. Can I say 3 or 4?
Sure.
Dyer's Eve, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Master of Puppets, Damaging,
So do you have a favorite album?
Master of Puppets.
The perfect album, in my opinion. Favorite band member, past or present?
James Hetfield.
We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans. What do you do for a living?
Sell beach condos.
Hey, I haven't had one of them yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
I work for a plumbing home remodeling company.
I'm an electrician.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Understand?
What do you do for a living? Job?
It's your job.
I'm a dentist,
Right on.
orthodontist.
We haven't had one of those yet.
I'm a physiotherapist.
All righty.
Yes.
I work in the steel mill,
Steel mill?
quality department.
What do you think about Brewer opening up for the show? Opening up the show.
You know, I love it because he actually, he knows us. He makes fun of us, being 40, doing the mosh pits, and I think it's pretty cool. He had his old school Metallica skit on MTV back in the day that I thought was really neat. So it's different being not having music, but it helps me save energy for the boys.
Complete open mind about it then.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I prefer another band. Culture band in your country, maybe. A band in the beginning of the career, I prefer. It's comedy is difficult because the language for me, but I don't like it. The gin, I don't. It's not as similar with the concert, the metal concert and the comedy shows. I prefer not.
Okay.
Yes.
I prefer another band, a little or local band, to know a local band. Yes.
I like it. It's different. looking forward to it?
Being my first Metallica show, I'm just gonna be happy with whatever, man. So
Right
I have
on.
a point of reference.
Hey, that's a good
But
one.
he's cool. I like his act.
I think it's awesome. I didn't even know him until like when I heard about it.
Final question, I will leave you alone. If the band members themselves should happen to see this, do you have a personal message for any or all of them?
Thank you. Love y'all. Appreciate it.
If the band themselves would happen to see this, do you have something you'd like to say to them?
I just say thank you. Thank you for all the things the band made to me. I'm a better person because Metallica.
Well said.
Thank you.
Metallica makes our life happy, be more happy, and thanks to play so many years. And I hope you can play a long time.
Forever, maybe.
Yes.
All righty. Well said.
I want to say rock on. That's all.
That's perfect.
Thanks for being a better part of my life. Always been there. The music's powerful, man. Connects everybody.
Yes.
I mean, we're not even from the same country, and we're here for that music. So that's powerful. Thank you.
If the band members themselves would see this video, do you have a personal message for them?
Yeah, please play in Wacken this year.
That's a good one. At the, how do you? Yeah, we say Wacken, he says Wacken. That's your message to him?
Now this one though, I'm gonna apologize right now because it's probably way too heavy for Birmingham, okay? I'm sorry. Sorry, y'all. revolution.